It is not normal times for any of us. Exceptional circumstances ask for exceptional responses. That is why CARICOM Impacts and CAFA is engaging in this program to address COVID-19 challenges faced by law enforcement officials, to further enhance preparedness and response of member states so that officers can contribute to fulfill their frontline duties in a safe manner. Today, we are delivering training on the use of PPE to law enforcement officers in the Caribbean community in partnership with the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CAFA. As you would recognize, frontline law enforcement officers do not have the option of working from home or socially distance. The nature of immigration and customs work inevitably subject its officers to environments which increase their risk of exposure to the virus. Our officers need to be provided with the necessary protective equipment, tools, competencies, and training to effectively conduct their duties. For the public to be kept safe, the officers need to be kept safe also. You need to be kept safe. This includes officers being conscious and up to date with control measures and the appropriate implementation of PPE. The World Health Organization has provided us with detailed guidelines on how to do that. However, we have recognized that we needed a training module to effectively implement these guidelines. Today, as noted earlier, we are partnering with CAFA to deliver this training module to you on the use of PPE to law enforcement officers. CAFA has made available some of the best minds and experts in the region in the field of bios, risk management, epidemiology, behavioral science, and health emergency responses to deliver this training. I would like to recognize the CAFA team and the CAFA experts. We have with us today Ms. Sasha Wallace, also Dr. Cheryl Jones. We have Mr. Peter Williams and Dr. Shelley Rodrigo. We believe that this training will significantly improve your capacity to work during this time and in times of future pandemics. This training will assist you in protecting you, your colleagues, friends, and family from COVID-19. My sincere thanks to all of you, and thank you for your kind attention. I wish you success in your training and in delivering your duties. We'd also like to thank the UK government for sponsoring this program. Thank you, stay safe and healthy. Candice, over to you.
It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this virtual launch of our project entitled Development of Sustainable Measures Towards Operations in Law Enforcement Based on Requirements to Mitigate the Spread of COVID-19. The overall objective of this project is to support law enforcement, security personnel in CARICOM member states in preventing, mitigating, and containing COVID-19. Today, we are delivering training on the use of PPE to law enforcement in all CARICOM member states in partnership with the Caribbean Public Health Agency. I would like to recognize Dr. Joyce St. John, who has been a key partner of CARICOM Impacts and who has admirably led the region's response to COVID-19. Dr. St. John has always availed herself to support the security sector. I'm also delighted to acknowledge Her Excellency Harriet Cross, British High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago, whose office, through the UK government's Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, has generously sponsored this crucial project, amongst others. We are proud to be a partner of the Government of the United Kingdom. Representatives, I also welcome you warmly, and other stakeholder groups, thank you for attending today. Next week, the 11th of March 2021, will mark 1 year since the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. We have sadly lost many lives within this region, and dare I say within the hemisphere, including friends, colleagues, and in some cases, family. Although a vaccine will be an important long-term tool, and in many countries they have started to roll out the vaccine plans for controlling COVID-19, we must continue to double up and focus on prevention of this infection to save lives. And I will leave that for the experts to speak about. Law enforcement, security, and prison officers are carrying out their duties to serve the public in extremely challenging circumstances. As you would recognize, frontline law enforcement, security, and prison officers do not have the option of working from home and or to socially distance. The nature of police, military, and prison officers' work inevitably subjects officers to environments which may most times increase their risk of exposure to the virus. Our officers need to be provided with the necessary protective equipment, tools, competencies, and training to effectively conduct their duties while remaining safe. For the public to be kept safe, police, military, and prisons officers need also to be kept safe. This includes officers being conscious and up to date with infection prevention and control measures and the appropriate implementation or use of PPE, taking into consideration police, military, and prison settings, as well as the peculiarities of the Caribbean region. The World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and other public health agencies have provided us with detailed guidance on how to do that. However, we've recognized that we needed a training module to effectively implement these guidelines. Today, we are again partnering with CARFA to deliver this training module on the use of PPE to law enforcement. At this moment, I would once again like to thank Dr. St. John, who has made available some of the best minds and experts in the region in the field of biorisk management, epidemiology, behavioral science, and health emergency responses to deliver this training module. The module has been designed to provide you with an understanding of the importance of PPE and its necessary and why it's necessary to use, what kind of PPE is necessary in the sector, how to properly use it, adjust, wear, take it off, limitations where they exist, and proper care, maintenance, useful life and disposal of the equipment. The training delivery is aimed at significantly improving national law enforcement, security, and prison officers' capacity to work during this time and in times of future pandemics. I'm also delighted to inform you about 2 additional targeted training interventions, which we are delivering within the framework of this project with the support of the United Kingdom. We have commenced the delivery of mental health and stress management training to leaders, managers, and supervisors within the security sector. Last week, we provided training to more than 120 managers and supervisors, as well as more than 150 officers in the security sector. This training on mental health and stress management will continue this week. We will also deliver training to heads of corporate services, administrative managers, health, safety, and environmental officers from the police, military, immigration, prisons, customs, and intelligence agencies throughout the CARICOM region on environmental prevention measures, including cleaning and disinfection of workspaces on March 15th and 19th, respectively. Heads of law enforcement and security agencies have indicated that this is a key element to assist in the risk mitigation of COVID-19. In addition to the capacity building training, part of this overall project is the provision of 70 desktop computers to the national authorities in prisons or correction centers to facilitate the safe and secure virtual visits between prisoners and their loved ones, as well as to assist those prisons which might not already have the capacity to facilitate court cases or the provision of services for the prisoners to attend court. This will ensure prisoners access the right of visitation during and even after the COVID-19 pandemic. The work of Impacts has not stopped with the coronavirus outbreak. In 2020, despite the challenges faced by the pandemic, CARICOM Impacts has supported CARICOM member states in the security sector with training of almost $6 million in value as part of the agency's provision of capacity building to member states. Most of this training budget was mobilized by Impacts through its partners. This includes a total number of 46 capacity building training sessions with approximately 6,000 officials trained, with 2,534 of those trained being women. Just a few notes on our contribution to the fight against COVID in the region. From January 2020, Impacts has been monitoring persons traveling from countries of interest, and we worked extensively with CARFA on this. Last year, with the support of UK Aid, we donated PPE supplies to 13 CARICOM member states. And throughout the crisis, we have continually coordinated meetings of standing committees, militaries, immigration, customs, etc., to advance best practices, promote prevention and control measures, and ensure a coherent and regional approach within the security sector. And given the nature of the pandemic, we've also had to focus on development of cyber security and have conducted cyber intelligence training for prison officers, given the new cyber threats that have emerged during this time. In conclusion, Impacts attaches great importance to this training. We are delighted to provide the assistance that you have asked for and would like to pay tribute to your courage and dedication during this difficult period. This training will assist you to protect yourself, your colleagues, friends, and family in COVID-19. Again, my sincerest thanks to Dr. St. John and to Her Excellency Harriet Cross. And I wish to thank you, the participants, for your kind attention and wish you every success in your training today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yao, Director, Acting, CARICOM Impacts, for highlighting to us the important role that our frontline officers play, and the role our frontline officers play. And I'd like to highlight them today, our participants: police, prisons and correctional facilities, military services, and national and intelligence services. We really do appreciate your efforts, and Impacts' work is to support what you do. And for us at Impacts to support you in ensuring that you remain safe, partnership is critical to this effort. And Mr. Yao had mentioned the critical role that CARFA has played with supporting Impacts and supporting our law enforcement and security agencies. For instance, last year they ran at least 2 sessions for us already on the proper use of PPE. They trained over 1,000 frontline officers. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Joyce St. John, the Executive Director of CARFA, one of our key and important partners, to deliver some remarks to us now. Dr. St. John.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Program Coordinator, Ms. Nadine Bashel. Her Excellency Harriet Cross, British High Commissioner for Trinidad and Tobago, Acting Director, CARICOM Impacts, Ms. Ayo, CARFA facilitators, participants, good morning. Thank you for those kind remarks, Acting Director. CARFA is managing this pandemic from the health security perspective, and so we value our very important partnership with CARICOM Impacts and the many opportunities you have provided to interface with this critical frontline sector. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA, to this training for development of sustainable measures towards operations in law enforcement based on requirements to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in the appropriate use of and requirements for personal protective equipment, PPE. The correct use of PPE is one of the most important public health safety measures in this COVID-19 environment of the circulation of variants, which are more easily transmissible and virulent. I have observed how much CARICOM governments depend on your sector. Therefore, CARFA is proud to be part of this partnership with Impacts not only for this training, but also for other trainings in collaboration with other agencies in the detection of counterfeit medication and vaccines on the CARICOM market. As CARFA has managed this pandemic from the health security perspective, we are happy to be part of the security cluster and to work so closely with our colleague regional organizations, CARICOM Impacts, RSS, JRCC, and SEDIMA. This multi-sectoral collaboration is a demonstration of the type of regional solidarity that the security cluster has utilized as we seek to protect this region throughout this crisis. While this training is a subset of an ongoing project that the UK has with Impacts, CARFA has also benefited from its long-standing partnership with Public Health England. We thank the UK government for its continued support to the region. I hope that you, the participants, have the best learning experience for these 2 training sessions scheduled for today. And I also hope that by participating in this training, it will be beneficial in saving your lives, that of your family, colleagues, and the community. Have a fruitful exercise. I thank you. Over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. St. John, for highlighting the link between health and security, and also letting us know that this training is not meant to be a one-off event, but rather to lead to sustainable operational measures at our respective agencies. You also highlighted a critical issue that has come up that we need to be aware of, which is that of counterfeit vaccines and medication. And also, while we spoke of partnership between CARICOM Impacts and CARFA, there are some other critical players, for example, the Caribbean Disaster and Emergency Management Agency, SEDIMA, the RSS, the Regional Security System, and CARFA and Impacts, who have been working very closely together to protect the officers that are working and the general public. So again, Dr. St. John, thank you very much for your remarks. And I would now like to invite Her Excellency Harriet Cross, the High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago, to deliver her remarks to us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just check that you can hear me before I continue?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you to the esteemed speakers who went before me, and to all those who've had a hand in organising today's event. It's much appreciated. And I wanted to say thank you for asking me to say a few words ahead of the training as well. Clearly, as other speakers have said, really COVID-19 is really an unprecedented event and a real challenge. And we have all had to adapt really quickly to new ways of working and new responsibilities. And I'm really conscious that those of you on this call are very much on the front line of that. I'm thinking particularly of police and prison officers. You've really faced high levels of COVID-19 in the workplace, which is a real challenge, not only for your own safety, but for that of your families. And you're really putting yourself at risk in order to provide the greater good to the community and to society. And I think you've all responded absolutely magnificently. You've put public safety first, and you've done your part to protect yourself and your colleagues. And we want to continue to support you in that. The British High Commission in Port of Spain actually does a lot of work on security issues more broadly. We engage regularly with the security agencies within Trinidad and Tobago, and also work closely with CARICOM Impact and other regional institutions to help counter security threats. But we also work closely with health agencies here. I was delighted to hear about the links with Public Health England. Really good to hear. Last year, for example, we actually took some UK development assistance and we put it into providing critical sanitation and PPE supplies to prison and correctional facilities across 13 CARICOM member states. I think maybe somebody's not on. Hello, I think I went onto mute, but I'm back again now. I hope you can hear me. Can I just check that you can hear me?
Yes, Your Excellency, we're hearing you.
Okay. Let me say that I think CARICOM Impact do an absolutely brilliant job in coordinating training for law enforcement across the region. I think over the last year, you've trained about 1,000 people in cooperation with CARFA, which is so important right now. And I'm really happy that the UK has been able to support this particular initiative to reach yet more people. The training that you're going to receive today, I know will arm you with practical knowledge to help keep you safe. I'm really pleased that CARICOM Impact and CARFA are also addressing the need to understand and manage stress. It's about mental health as well as sort of the more obvious physical sides of COVID-19 impact. I'm really conscious that that COVID-19 really is a source of anxiety for a lot of people, and it affects different people in different ways. So I think learning to recognize those signs of stress can really help us build greater resilience, again, as individuals, but also as communities and as work colleagues. So that's all I'll say. I want to wish you well for today's training. I'm sure you'll find it extremely valuable. And let me just finish by thanking again CARICOM Impact and CARFA for their invaluable contribution to the region in organising and delivering this really excellent training. We're really happy to be partnering with you, and I look forward to further opportunities in the future. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Ms. Harriet Cross. As you know, this project was made possible through the generosity of the donation of the United Kingdom government, and we at Impacts are very happy to continue to partner with you and your country. We also note with appreciation the generous financial support of UK Aid that you late last year, we donated, as you indicated, sanitation and PPE supplies to the corrections and prison services. So thank you very much again for your continued support to the CARICOM region. This brings us to the end of the formal part of the session. I would just like to introduce again our facilitators so that you know who they are. We have Mrs. Sasha Wallace-Sankasing, the Biorisk Manager, Laboratory Services from CARFA. Dr. Cheryl Jones, Behavioral Scientist, also from CARFA. And Mr. Peter Williams, the Technical Officer, Infectious Disease and Emergency Response, also from CARFA. I would encourage the participants to utilize the information, not as a one-off, as we said, but to inculcate sustainable practices at your various workspaces to ensure that you and the rest of the CARICOM region remain safe. I know you now have an issue, so I'll encourage persons.
Can you please turn on your cameras so we could take an e-photo to start the session? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Candy Saunders-Alfred. For those of you who can, just to turn on your your camera, sorry, so that we can take an e-photo. There are 5 pages, so could you all please be patient as we do this process? Thank you. So we are about to take this first photo. Everyone who can, please place your Caribbean smiles on the screens. Thank you. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, I just took the first one. 1 minute. Okay, second photo in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, I know the face could be hurting by now, but just give us 1 more minute. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, and next one in 3, 2, 1. And final one in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the session this afternoon.
And thank you to our technical team for that. And we were playing previously a recorded session of the opening ceremony for the first session of the PPE, the use of PPE webinar. We really would like to thank Her Excellency Harriet Cross, High Commissioner of the UK to Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Joy St. John, Executive Director of Caribbean Public Health Agency, and also Ms. Tonya Ayal, the Director of CARICOM Impacts, for delivering those remarks. We want to thank, of course, the government of the region, across the region, for their participation in this webinar for today. And we are grateful to our facilitators from CAFA, Dr. Cheryl Jones, Dr. Shelley Rodriguez, who is joining us online, Peter Williams, and of course, Sasha Wallace Sankising. We thank you all for being with us today. And please be reminded to enroll on CBSI Connect learning platform to get the certificate and also the course material. And also be reminded to mute your mics and to use the chat function to post any comments or questions. I will now hand over to, we'll live stream on Facebook this afternoon. I will now hand over to Sasha, and she will give you an overview of the session for today. Expectations. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this second session for the use of PPE for law enforcement. And we understand that there are more than 100 connections online, and welcome to those of you joining us by Facebook. My name is Sasha Wallace Ankersing, and I'm the Biorisk Manager at the Caribbean Public Health Agency. And so I will be taking you through the session on the use of the proper use and putting on and taking off of the various types of PPE that you may have to use as part of your daily duties. But it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Peter Williams to give us the epidemiological update. A lot of things have happened since we ran this course in May and July of 2020, and Peter's here to give us an update as to what's new. And of course, I'm sure many of you have questions about the new variants that have been identified, as well as what's up with vaccines. When are we going to get them, and any questions that you may have regarding their use and side effects. So Pete, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for that, Sasha. Are we ready to go? Okay, well, I'll start talking while we're trying to figure this out. As it says there, I'm Peter, and as they introduced me, I'm the technical officer for infectious diseases and emergency response from CARFA. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an epidemiological update that looks at the numbers and what's been going on. We'll talk about some of the prevention methods and that many of which you've heard over the last months and through the year. We'll talk about the variants that have been out, and we'll talk about vaccines as well. So I also want to say a special thank you for those of you that were able to be here. You're kind of the lucky few that were chosen that we can fit so few in, but we're glad to have you guys here in the room, as well as the people out in internet land that are with us today. So I'm going to go ahead with a little bit of the epidemiological update for you guys. First, I wanted to remind you of what's happened over the last just over a year. So the first cases were coming out in December in China, in December of 2019. And so those were the first cases we saw. And then the first case came to the Caribbean just a year ago yesterday. So that was March 1st of 2020. And then March 11th, it was declared a pandemic by the WHO. Throughout 2020, we saw lots of waves coming around the world as countries saw rises and falls in their numbers. And then vaccines were finally rolled out in December. And the first vaccine gained its WHO approval right at the end of December, and then 2 more just a few weeks ago in the middle of February. So that's just a brief reminder of where we've been over the last year. Right now, we can look at our numbers both in the world and the region. We're at 112 million cases worldwide, with 2,490,000 deaths. So that's very significant. For the region, I have both numbers for the Greater Caribbean, and then the CARFA member states align more or less with CARICOM. So here in the CARICOM region, we've had 107,000 cases with 1,800 deaths. So pretty significant impact on our region here as well. This is a graph just by country. I know it's a little hard for the people here in the room to see, but this is our number. This is our bar here for Trinidad and Tobago. Probably not everybody here is Trini, but that's okay. But you can see some of the countries were able to see quite a bit of success in keeping it out, and other countries had a little bit more difficulty and have had a bit higher numbers. So I'm sure you've all seen many of these prevention methods. We've talked about these for a long time over the last year, and hopefully you've heard them from many sources. Remembering to wash your hands and sanitize your hands using the hand sanitizer. We've been repeating about what mask wearing and how to do that correctly, and Sasha's going to do some demonstrations about that, but we've all seen that for quite some time. Physical distancing, making sure that you keep that 6 feet between you and you avoid the crowds at the grocery store and your open air markets and vegetable markets and whatnot. Stay home if you feel you have symptoms. That should be really for any time you're sick. You shouldn't be going out and exposing anybody for anything, but especially now during this time. And then keeping your surfaces clean, making sure that you clean things as you go through. As you go through your workday, as you go to different places. So right here, I'm going to introduce a little bit of a poll for our people, and we're going to ask a question. And so my question to you is, which of these measures do you find difficult in your day-to-day work? Which are you not able to follow so well in your job as you go through your day? And you can, those of you on the interwebs, you can go ahead and click any one of the options there. They align well with what's there. But I'll throw this out to people in the room as well. What do you guys find hard to follow for when you're going through your days? Wearing of the mask, yeah. That's true. That's true. Shelly, are they able to put their answers in? We're not seeing that the answers come through on the.
Hi, Peter. Yes, the answers are coming through.
Oh, okay, they're not projecting here on our screen, so must have a little lag.
Not sure why. I will end the poll soon and share the results. Just let me know if you see the results once I share.
Okay. How about anybody else? There's a few people farther back. What's difficult? Which of these are difficult for your daily? Oh, good. The results are coming up, Shelley. Thank you. Avoid crowds. Yeah, I agree with that one. Man, my hands are raw. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they leave your hands sticky. It's true. Yeah. I prefer the stores that have the sink outside. I'll go to that store instead of another one if I can. So you can go ahead and end the poll there. And I would say those results kind of matched. People had difficulty staying that 6 feet. I know that sometimes it's even hard to judge that 6 feet of, oh, is that far enough? Or is this far enough? Or so sometimes it helps to remember it's about 2 shopping cart lengths, or about 2 bicycle lengths. That's probably farther than you were thinking. That might be farther than you had in mind. And what do you do when you can't follow some of these in your job? You follow the other ones. Okay. If you can't stay 6 feet apart, we can right now. But if you can't for some reason, perhaps, I know we have a lot of law enforcement, so perhaps you're apprehending a bank robber, and you might not be able to stay 6 feet from this person that you're apprehending. But you need to use the other strategies to compensate for that. So you may have to touch somebody, but you need to wash quickly afterwards. You need to clean the surfaces. Okay, if you're using equipment out in the field and you're touching other people, or other people are using it, you need to clean it. You saw when I came up, we wiped the microphone down. You should be wiping if you're getting in a car that you share with other coworkers. Wipe down the steering wheel, wipe down the handles and the gear shifter. So these all work in conjunction together. It's not that one gives you 100% protection. It's that all together, these are a suite of ways that we can protect ourselves. All right, so I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about variants. So my first question is, and people can type this into the chat as well, what your answer, what is a variant? What does that mean? Do people know? Does anybody here in the room know? I'm sure you've heard it a bit, but I don't know if anybody knows what it means. Okay, so it's a mutation. A variant is a mutation somewhere in the DNA of the virus. And so it's a change, sometimes significant and sometimes not so significant, in how the virus presents itself, in the proteins on its surface and how it works. Okay, someone put down in the chat mutation. Good. So how many are there? Does anybody know? You don't know? Anybody? Somebody in the chat. 2. Okay, someone in the chat says 2. 4. Okay, those are good. Those are good. They're slightly off. They're off by about, oh, I see a 5 there, or 6. That's off by about 3,990. Okay, there's 4,000 variants, and this is over a week ago, so there's actually more. Okay, each of these colored dots that you see here, that's a variant. Okay, the difference is that some are significant and some are not so significant. There's 3, actually 4 now, another one just came out, that are currently new variants of concern. Back in March and May, I believe we were looking at 4 different variants were the significant ones. Now we have 3, and now a 4th one that's coming out of the US. So what does that mean that they're of concern? It means that the virus has changed in a way that is advantageous to itself. It could be more transmissible. It could be more resistant so that it can survive longer on a surface. It might be harder to clean off of a surface or something like that. So it's more advantageous for itself. So we've had 3 that have come out in the last couple of weeks, and now a 4th one just is out in the US. But we have one in the UK, one from South Africa, and one from Brazil that have been fairly significant. And each of them could be more transmissible, They could have a little bit higher fatality rate. A couple have potential for reinfection. The others have been largely that if you get it, you probably won't get it again for at least some time. We're not sure how long that that immunity might last, but so and then one particular we're seeing evidence that it's less one of the vaccines is less effective. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute when I talk about vaccines. But these all are just changes that make the virus just a little bit better at its job. So we have to be better at our job. So what do we do? How does this change what we do? It doesn't really change a lot. We still need to use all of these same prevention methods. Okay, washing our hands when we can, wearing a mask, keeping the distance as best we can, cleaning our surfaces, especially those that we share. So these same strategies will continue to help to protect us. And then we're also going to add in the idea of vaccines. So I know that we've heard a lot about vaccines. So Shelley, you can go ahead and launch that next poll. I know that there's a lot of people that have been a little bit resistant to vaccines. And so my question here. Oh, use the mic, please. We have a question in the room.
I would like to know why
Yes.
it is we have to get 2 doses of the vaccine.
Okay.
Normally, other vaccine, you usually get one if it's polio, this, that, the other, the.
Okay.
It's one.
Sure.
Why it is we have to get 2 with this?
Okay. I will address that. That is a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. It's going to come up on maybe 2 or 3 slides down. So I'll hit it, and then if you want me to come back to it, I will still. But I'm asking here in this poll is, are you going to get the vaccine? So I have yes as soon as possible. I have maybe I want to wait and see what happens. And then the last one is no, I'm going to delay as long as possible. I don't know if people here want to say, but if anybody wants to say how they feel, they're welcome to in the room. Okay. There's somebody here that says they want to delay as long as possible. You're not alone. There's 22% that are saying that. 53% or so are saying maybe, and about 27 are saying yes. That's roughly along the lines that we saw this morning as well when we did this. So that's okay. That's normal. People have reservations about things. They're new. We don't understand them well. It takes a while to become accustomed to it, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with it. Do we know why that marks it? Looks like somebody's marking up my slides. All right. So right now there are 73 vaccine candidates in clinical development. Okay, so that's a pretty broad field. Okay, there's lots of them going on. So my answers can't answer for every single one of them. I can't give you 73 answers, but a lot of the things I'll talk about are just kind of the broad strokes of how these work. Okay, so the WHO, all these 73, they're working for World Health Organization emergency use list. So what's the emergency use list? That is a way that the WHO, the World Health Organization, assesses the suitability of novel health products during public health emergencies. And that's what this is. This is a public health emergency. And so it's how they are assessing those vaccines. It's a way to make medicines, vaccines, and diagnostics available as rapidly as possible to address the emergency while adhering to stringent criteria of safety, efficacy, and quality. It means they're working as hard as they can to get it ready and still keep all of the safety, the efficacy, and the quality that we have for all of the other vaccines that we're used to, the polio, smallpox, the chickenpox, the HPV virus, all of those that have a vaccine, we're trying to keep those criteria. Now, in addition to that, some countries have approved already. We just saw the US approved another vaccine, their third vaccine out of the US. But that hasn't had it's not on the WHO list yet, but certain countries approve vaccines because they've already seen the evidence and they feel it's good. So Russia's done that, India, China, Cuba, Mexico. So that's happened widely, and many of them are working for the emergency use list from the WHO. So as I said, there's 3 right now from the WHO that are approved, 1 from Pfizer and 2 from AstraZeneca. And you can see that a lot of countries here in the region have already started to do those vaccines. We just got them here in Trinidad and Tobago. They're coming out 2 weeks ago, last week, I don't remember. But we've seen it well through the region. It's spread well. So they're coming here region. So that's good news. Okay. So the ones that are approved by the WHO, as we said, have 2 doses. The one from the US now that the FDA just approved, that actually only has 1 dose. So they work on different platforms. They work a little bit differently. Okay. The reason that you get 2 on some of them is because the first dose starts as a baseline immunity, but to give a longer efficacy, you get a second dose. It's like a booster. And I would say that you are actually incorrect. Most of your vaccines do require multiple doses. We just don't remember because we got them as babies. Polio requires multiple. Chickenpox, I don't want to say, I don't remember exactly, but many of them actually do. So we're the flu, right? You may get a yearly flu vaccine, right? Some people get those yearly because that strain changes. So it's not always, it's usually actually not 1. It's usually 2. Or usually multiple. And even that 1 from the US, they're not sure what the long term for years and years, because they've just developed it. You might need a booster in a couple of years. We don't know yet. So we're still looking at how long that efficacy is, how long that will last. Okay, so most of these vaccines provide the main thing that they do is they provide protection from developing severe symptoms. Okay, so all these people that are needing to be in the hospital and the ICU, that these vaccines work to prevent that. So you can still get mild symptoms, but for the most part, it will stop that. They're still researching the ability of these vaccines to stop the spread of the virus. The evidence isn't real clear. It seems to decrease a person's ability to spread, and it decreases the window, but that's not completely clear. And protection may vary again by variant. So depending on what variant is spreading in your area of the world, in your country, you may need one vaccine or a different. So people, of course, have had lots of different reservations. Okay, and that's normal, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I've had some reservations too about it. Okay, and we look at the science and we look at what that means and how that influence us. So we're gonna go ahead to claim 1. It was developed too fast. And when I say claim, I just mean that people often say that. That it's developed too fast and they don't know what that means and they're worried about safety. But part of it is a lot of people here are law enforcement, and so I have this accident scene, and I want you to keep that in mind, because when there's an accident, how do you dispatch for that? Do you dispatch one car? And then that first car gets there eventually and they assess it, and then you dispatch one other car? No, you dispatch lots of cars. You dispatch fire, police, EMS all at once. Okay? And to get to this scene, are the police and ambulance waiting all the way at the back of that line? No, they use their lights and sirens, right? To get to the front of the line. So that kind of follows a little bit what the vaccine has done, okay? Normally, the vaccine would be done step by step by step with usually long periods in between as they reevaluate, take a long time to reevaluate. You have to wait in line, okay? When you get to the end of one phase, you have to wait in line, and then eventually it goes to the review board because they have a stack of 30 or 40 other vaccines and medicines to look at. So slowly you move up. But we changed that a little bit for the COVID vaccine. Okay, the WHO made it so that none of these steps is shorter, none of these phases are shorter, but we're doing them a little bit concurrently. Okay, especially look at, so for the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials, this is when they start testing it in people. Okay, none of those was shortened, but they started phase 1 and then they were finding, okay, it's safe, it's not causing any major problems. Let's start with phase 2 at the same time we're doing phase 1. So it's dispatching them multiple things at a time. Okay, same with phase 3. They started it without all the interim, all the waiting. They started it when it was looking safe and effective in phase 1 and phase 2. They still did them. They still have all of the evidence that they would normally collect, but they got it in a shorter time. And then the WHO, they put it right at the top of the list. So they had a committee that's only looking at those things. And that's how it's been made available so quickly. Okay. There's a few other things that helped to make it a shortened timeline. We already know coronaviruses. These aren't new. We've had multiple different coronaviruses that have passed through the world. So we know coronaviruses. We've been doing vaccines for a long time. We've been doing these types of vaccines for a long time. The virus, as I said, the first cases were in December of 2019. By the first week of January, the virus was sequenced. The DNA was sequenced. And so when I was in college a long time ago, that was still a new thing. And that would have taken years. They were just starting the Human Genome Project. It's years to do it. And now they can do it by a kit that you get in the mail by 23andMe, if you've heard of that. And so we know a lot of these things. We can build on these things from the past, and that makes it faster. And then, of course, they're piling a lot of funding into it, and they're putting it right to the top of the list. And so this is everybody's priority, and they're putting they're moving scientists from their old projects to this so they can get it done. And again, I just want to say, shortened time, but not at the expense of safety and effectiveness. It's not going forward. Let's go to variants. Okay, for time, I'm gonna cut one of these out. But if there's specific questions that go to it, we'll catch it as we can. So another thing that people say is that it's not effective for all the variants. So it's not useful? Is it any good for me? Well, so far we haven't had the South Africa variant come to this region. And in fact, I don't think the Brazilian variant has moved into our region yet either. We haven't seen evidence of that yet. And we are constantly, CARFA's lab is sequencing these. UE is sequencing samples from all of the countries to watch for this and know when they come. So will it give you protection? Yes, it will. Yeah, it may not be equally effective for all variants, but not all variants are everywhere. And I don't know the people that are in the internet call or in this room, but especially now, there's not a lot of travel between here and South Africa. There's not even a lot of travel to the UK. Some of the islands do, but so that spread is slowed by those, and you're still going to have protection. Also, they're constantly researching these, they're updating and they're improving. So it still provides vital protection from a lot of what's out there. And I mentioned the annual flu vaccine is similar in some ways. Some people get it every year. It doesn't protect from all strains. So that's something that maybe we didn't all know all the time, but it's not something that's new. Do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Just could you confirm for persons online, in the Caribbean, the only variant that has been identified so far in our countries has been the UK variant. Okay, so we have not identified multiple variants circulating in the CARICOM region. However, there are some countries across the globe that may have multiple variants in circulation. For instance, the US, South Africa, the UK. All right, but none here in the Caribbean. So just wanted to let persons be clear on that.
Okay.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay, thank you for saying that, Sasha. I know I'm talking fast. I'm trying to get through the slides, so I appreciate that. I really want to make these clear. So let's go to does it make me fertile? Candy, the last one? Yes. Okay. I'll repeat the question. It's okay. You can. Yes. We have largely seen that most people don't seem to get it a second time, but we don't know to how long that lasts. Okay, because it's only been around for a short time, we don't know how long that immunity lasts. For some people, we've seen that it lasts for a significant time, and for some people, we're able to, we call it an antibody teeter, and so we see that their antibodies tend to go down over time. So yes. Yes.
Getting from between husband and wife. Well, I want that just on a sexual basis, breeding basis.
It's not a.
If
It's
you
not a.
understand what I'm trying to
I
say.
understand what you're saying. It's not a sexually transmitted infection.
Yeah, but if
it's
breeding in one another face.
Any family member that is in a close, yes, that is in a close area could. You and I, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be family. That's why we're saying avoid the crowds. So let's go ahead with the infertility one. We're gonna wrap up here in just a minute. So this is a thing that I've heard a number of times from a number of people, that it will make me infertile, or they're worried about that. This is not a new claim. Okay, this is something that they say about every vaccine that comes out. They've been saying it about polio. The countries that are still fighting polio, we hear it. Chickenpox, we heard it. We hear about this all the time. Okay, so this is not a new vaccine claim, and it is false. Okay, there's no way that it could do that. Okay, it cannot impact your fertility. Okay, it does not change your DNA. That's not how the vaccine works, right? It's not how these platforms work. Okay, and I want to encourage you along that lines to remember to get your information from credible sources. Okay, your crazy Uncle Willie at the Christmas party is not a credible source. Okay, when you're at the illegal bar that's open on the corner at night on St. James in the evening, I see you all hanging out there with 20 people in your group without a mask. Okay, that is not a credible source. Okay, you might hear something, you might have somebody might say something, and it gets your interest about being infertile, or about it's happened too fast. But you got to think, I'm not going to share that. We want you to think, go to a credible source. So that would be CARFA, okay, on our webpage. On our Facebook, you can ask questions. People do this all the time, and I'm writing answers all the time about oftentimes the same questions, but people have the same questions. Okay, go to WHO's website or PAHO's website or your Ministry of Health's website for any of the countries online. They all have good websites to give you good, strong information. And then I would like to send a plea to all of you. Please go and take this survey. We've launched this survey. It's asking questions specifically about your hesitancy for vaccines. This can help us to communicate better to you. What are your concerns? You can tell us your concerns and we can communicate the science better to you. So go ahead online. You don't enter any personal information. Nobody's going to know what you said or didn't say or what questions you answered or didn't. That the link should be online in the chat. People here in the room, I'll be happy to give you the link so you can go and do it, or you'll get it as an email from Impacts or whatnot. So please take that survey and help us to do that a little bit better. So I don't know how we are on time. Do we have time for a question or two? Okay, so Shelly, what do you want to give us from the chat? What's a good one? The last question. The last question, does it make you infertile, yes or no? No. No. False. It doesn't make you infertile. It can't interact with your DNA. It just doesn't do that. And so it doesn't change how those organs work, how your reproductive organs work. And I get it. People have that reservation. That's reasonable and okay to have those reservations. I really want to stress that it's okay. But the important thing is to find out the truth behind it, to find out what the reality is. So thank you for doing that. Oh, we've got a slide up already. Okay. So I'm done. However, all the questions that were put in the chat, we're gonna keep answering them and doing our best. For anybody that's here in the room, I'm happy to answer questions. I have to take it. Okay, we're gonna take it. Okay.
Yes. Okay. If you contract COVID during your pregnancy, how would that affect your unborn child? Or if pregnant, you could take the vaccine.
Okay, so the evidence is not clear exactly what the effects are. They're not the same for every pregnant woman that gets. Okay, they could have a very severe case, and that could impact the pregnancy, or it could cause real problems in that. Or they may have a very mild case, or even asymptomatic. We talk a lot about people that don't even know that they had it, and so it might be very mild. Anybody that is pregnant and feels that they have symptoms should seek care immediately. Really, for anything, any time you feel sick during a pregnancy, you should be seeking that. But you should definitely seek that care and talk to your healthcare provider. For the vaccine, we don't totally know.
Oh, so you don't know if you're pregnant, if you could take it.
If you're pregnant, you need to talk to your doctor about the vaccines that are available and whether it's safe for you. Okay? I'm not telling you yes, I'm not telling you no. You need to talk to your healthcare provider about the vaccine that's available in your country and its safety for you. And what time of the pregnancy and whether you need to wait until after, or so you need to that needs to be a conversation between that person and that healthcare provider. Okay? All right. Sasha, you're up.
Thanks very much, Peter. Excellent introductory session. As we exchange and I come with my bag of tricks, I think something is missing here. I think there's a little chair.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's okay. And yes, as we do the changeover, I just want to encourage persons to continue placing your questions in the chat. Peter will be providing answers. And I thank Shelley. I know that you have been also providing the answers to participants. Okay, so Peter and Shelley will answer that question in the chat regarding chronic illness in the chat. And if we have time at the end, we can flag that for a verbal response. However, I just want to let persons know that we will be posting all the Q&A bits on the CBSI Connect platform. Okay, are we ready now to proceed? Yes, okay, great. Okay, well, colleagues online and in the room, we're going to move now into the use of the personal protective equipment. And so the learning objectives this afternoon. At the end of this session, we hope that you, the participants, will be able to list the factors that influence the type of PPE that you're wearing. So PPE selection, identify various types of facial protection, the masks or respirators that are available and the types that you should be using. Understand how respirators function. So you'll see that not all facial protection is the same. And then we will be doing a demonstration showing the correct way of putting on and removing gloves, as well as a mask. And for that, we're going to be using the N95 respirator. Okay. Okay. So what is personal protective equipment? Before, when I ran this course prior to 2020, it would usually only be with people who work in labs or medical facilities. But now we're all experts at wearing PPE. Yes?
Yeah.
We all have to wear the masks. In some cases, we have to wear gloves for specific activities or tasks that we have. And for some of you, you may even have to wear the wraparound gown or even a face shield. Yes? So personal protective equipment is basically the type of gear that you put on that protects you, the wearer. Okay? It's not intended to protect your colleague that's in the cubicle next to you or the person that you're dealing with. However, some of the PPE that we have can have the effect of protecting both the wearer and the persons around us. That's the mask. And that's why it's become important for us over the course of this pandemic that this was definitely not the norm. We used to see it in movies or other parts of the world, people wearing masks, but now we have it as a normal part of life to wear this mask. Okay. I know that many of us are hoping that we would go back to where we don't have to wear the mask so that we can see if people are smiling or growling at us. Yeah. But for you, security officers in the field, this is not something that's really new to you because you've always had as part of your training in terms of responding to different situations, you've needed to use PPE. It's the rest of us who've had to really come up to speed. What's important here is that the type of PPE that you use is based on risk assessment. It's based on the situation that you're going to be dealing with. So the type of task, activity, the environment, how many persons, are you going to be doing a walk around? Are you doing highway patrol? Are you going to be dealing with a steady stream of persons coming to your desk? Okay. All of those will have a different set of risks to you, the person dealing with those individuals. Okay. And so based on that, you would have to make the appropriate selection. So I want you to remember what Pete spoke about, an ounce of prevention. Yes. And so PPE is just one part of that. It's not the be all and end all. So we have to look at using a combination of control measures. And we know some of this in regular life. Yes. So if we take the concept of control measures, this part about elimination, substitution, engineering controls, process controls, and then PPE, we can apply that to a particular situation. We can talk about applying this to persons getting knocked down on a street. Okay, so that let's say there is a street that's near a busy town center, and the statistics show that this street has the highest number of fatalities for whatever reason it is. So you decide, what can we do to reduce or even eliminate this? Okay, so one way you can remove the hazard here being the cars driving too fast. You can say, okay, we make this so that there are no cars driving on this particular street. That way, what do? We eliminate or remove the hazard, because the people driving the cars, not the cars. The people driving the cars are causing the accidents, yeah? But then you may not be able to do that because the street is near a very busy center and you want to have people going to the shopping centers that are close by. So you say, well, okay, let's replace the hazard, you substitute it. So instead of having people driving cars, say no cars, but you're allowed to ride your motorbikes or you're allowed to ride your bicycles. Yet, you can still have persons being knocked down, yeah? You can still have that. So what you've done is you've replaced or changed the hazard, but now there's a less likelihood that the number of persons getting knocked down will happen. But still not good enough. So you say, okay, what else can we do? In addition to removing cars, banning the cars, you allow persons to ride the bikes. Maybe we have to put some engineering or physical facilities in place to further improve safety of persons walking, the pedestrians. So you make sure that the pavement is proper. So you have the curbs for people to walk on. You have the bollards are really like the barriers that you might sometimes see. And you put up different types of barriers. So you ensure that pedestrians are not walking in the road and that the cyclists are staying in their lane. Okay? In addition to that, you find that that's still not enough. So you want a combination approach. You want to look at the behavior of persons. So you give them different things. We do education. We say, okay, we run an ad campaign and we talk about this street being only used by cyclists from X to Y time. And then it's a pedestrian footpath after that. Having signs up and of course having law enforcement to ensure that people are doing the correct thing, that people are also walking on the zebra crossing and not crossing anywhere in the road, okay? And then of course, down at the bottom here, you have your personal protective equipment. So these are things that people can use to further reduce the risk of being knocked down. And this goes both ways. It goes also to the persons, or the cyclists. So persons can use helmets or high visibility jackets. And people sometimes in some cities carry around these things called shame flags. If somebody does something wrong, they take out a rag and a flag and they wave it at the person who did it, so they know they did something incorrect. Okay, so I'm just using this as an example for us to understand that PPE is just one component of a number of measures that can be used to address a particular risk or situation. So therefore, if we apply this to COVID-19, using the same context, the same hierarchy, where do we see PPE? Is it at the top or the bottom? It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom. And just by it being at the bottom kind of shows you that it's actually the least effective of all the measures that we have, right? This is like your last line of defense. Yet, you would agree with me that we tend to think of PPE when the situation arises, the first thing that we think about. We don't think, how many of us thought about physical distancing when COVID-19 first started? No? We didn't really think about that. How many of us thought about the plexiglass barriers We knew we had to come, we were either, well, I think in this situation, all of us continue to work. Yes, both online and here. So no one thought about plexiglass dividers. Yeah, but these are some of the different measures that have become commonplace now. And so if we look at this, we see that for elimination, that would mean either a vaccine or cure is available. And so while now we have we have multiple vaccines available, they're still not 100% effective, correct? So that's what we have stated. We're at the beginning stage of using the vaccines and seeing how long their effectiveness is. We can't really replace it, although we do have variants now. So actually in some cases made it more difficult. But then we have all of these things, isolating people from the virus in terms of using the markers on the floor for physical distancing, the plexiglass dividers, and the different administrative controls that we have put in place with appointment systems, as opposed to having everyone come in and be first come, first serve, and you have all those persons waiting. Now people have had to implement those types of systems. Of course, we know the first thing you do when you go to any institution is wash your hands or do the hand sanitizer before anything else. Yeah. So, and oops, sorry. I went so far back. Okay, and then at the bottom, we have all the different types of PPE. So the face shields, the masks, the gloves, the gowns, shoe covers, even in some areas where you need to ensure that you're not taking anything in with you or taking anything back out with you. So we have our first poll, and I'd like to know which of the following protective measures that we're going to have on the poll do you use when you're interacting with the public? I imagine some form of respiratory protection will be coming up high here. Sorry? Yes. So, right. So we have here N95 respirators, surgical masks, which is like the blue ones, the mask with the exhalation valves, the neck gaiter, and non-medical masks, which are the cloth masks. Okay, so I can see in the room the type of mask that you tend to wear. Okay. So interesting that we do have persons wearing the neck gaiter as well, and those with the exhalation valve. Okay, so thanks very much, colleagues, for your input there. Yes, many of us, depending on the type of activity that we're doing, we might have different types of masks that we use during the day. So for some activities, we may actually use the cloth mask, while for others, we reserve use of the surgical mask. Yes? Okay, thank you. We can remove the poll. And you can tell me if this looks familiar to you. You go into an institution and you see employees of that institution wearing different types of PPE, yeah, different forms. So I don't know where they're located, but the use of the neck gaiter is not recommended for security officials. Okay. In fact, it's the least protective of the type of face protection that we have available to us in terms of masks or facial coverings. And so I have seen, for instance, on the highway, persons doing highway patrol. That is acceptable since they're standing off to the side by themselves. But I hope that they will have a surgical mask or high protective type of facial protection in the event that they actually need to apprehend or to have an interaction with someone in a vehicle when they have to get up close and personal to a member of the public. Okay, because that would offer them better protection. The other type is the one with the exhalation valve. This is also not recommended for use by particularly security personnel, persons dealing with the public frontline workers. Again, with the mask, we are being protected from the splashes and spills that can come from others when they're talking to us, but we are also protecting others near to us in terms of when we breathe out. So if we have an exhalation valve, what's happening here? Every time we breathe out, the air from us is going out. Okay? So it defeats the purpose. And likewise with some of these. Did I make that drawing? I'm saying something else. I'm so sorry. So we go to factors that influence PPE selection. And as I mentioned a little while ago, the risk assessment. And you know, we think of risk assessment as something that might be daunting when we hear the term, but we're doing that all the time. From the time we open our eyes, we're doing a risk assessment. You're doing a risk assessment when you decide to get up off the bed and go into the kitchen, or whether or not you just lie there for another 20 minutes. Yeah? You're making a risk assessment to decide whether you're going to drive to work, or you're going to take a taxi to work, or you're going to walk to work, if you have those options. Yeah, those are all risk assessments, small risk assessments. Or when we are, how do we know when we go to the grocery? When we reach home and there's nothing to cook, right? I hope not. I hope that at least we have a way of at least checking our fridge or pantry, the cupboard to see, okay, I'm running low on this. I need to go get this the next time. Those are all risk assessments that we're doing. Okay, and we're taking measures to reduce the negative impact. We don't want to go hungry. So we need to make sure we have food in the house. Okay, so likewise, whether we're going to be doing desk duty, or we're going to be doing active patrols or inspections or even a raid, that will influence the type of PPE that we're going to wear. And in terms of the type of exposures that are anticipated, well, for US security officials, we recognize that dealing with the general public, you might be able to create a distance, yeah, between you and the general public. But if you're going to be dealing with suspects, meaning you're apprehending someone, then that's very close quarters, or like if you're going to be doing a sting operation or something like that. And this is also versus dealing with confirmed cases of COVID-19. In some instances, in close quarters, such as the prison system, there are sections where you have identified where you're going to have a cohort or prisoners that become positive. The type of PPE that you would wear there, you have specific protocols in place to ensure your safety, as well as to avoid transmission to other areas of your workplace. Okay? And we spoke about physical distancing, and this is at least 2 meters. Remember, Pete mentioned you could use 2 shopping carts, okay, as a measure, so 6 feet. The other aspect or other factor that you need to take into consideration when selecting PPE, be looking at the durability and the appropriateness of that PPE for the task that you're conducting. I think it's safe to say that over the last year, we've all had the opportunity to use different types of masks. And, you know, some of them just don't stand up as well as others do. All right, so durability. And if you're going to use a little mask, you say, oh, this looks so cute. And then you realize it's just by the tip of your nose and it's above your chin, right? That's not going to be appropriate. We want to be able to completely cover our noses and our mouth. So it should be all the way over and under our chin, which speaks to fit as a factor. So as noted, masks protect both the nose and the mouth. We're not supposed to be wearing it like hammocks or chin guards. That's not what we want to have. All right. And also, if we're eating, or if we're drinking something. But after that, we're putting our masks back on properly. Okay, especially we're talking about this in the context of the working environment. We don't want to be having a bowl of nuts, and so we're snacking, and so the mask is hanging under the chin. All right. So those are masks. In terms of goggles, some of you may need to use goggles for your duties, especially if you're going to be up in close quarters with persons. And these protect the eyes. They should fit snugly over and around the eyes. And please note that personal spectacles or glasses are not a substitute for goggles. And why do we need to protect our eyes? Well, we're very familiar knowing that the virus is transmitted or can enter our bodies through our noses or our mouths, but it can also enter through the mucous membranes, all mucous membranes, including the eyes. Okay? It's much reduced, but it can happen. And so that's why goggles are also important as a type of PPE to consider in your jobs. We all have said that wearing the mask is a difficult thing. And for those of us who wear glasses, we know as soon as you put those on, it instantly fogs up. So for goggles, it can have the same effect. And so there's an anti-fog feature in many goggles that improves how well you can see. Okay. Face shields protect the face, the nose, the mouth, and the eyes. And in many countries, this has been allowed as a substitute for those persons with medical conditions, which sort of prevents them from wearing a mask, okay? And it should cover the forehead, extend below the chin, and wrap around the side of the face. And you see this also being used with children. Persons tend to give their children the face shields instead of the mask. And really, masks are not indicated for very young children. They're also should not be used by persons who can't put on or remove the mask for themselves. Okay? So these are persons with different types of physical challenges. In terms of the types of masks that we have, this is to reinforce what we already know, because now we're approaching 1 year with us having to deal with masks. Okay, so we have the non-medical face masks or the cloth masks, which we all use. The medical face mask, and these are basically the surgical masks. Majority of us use them while we're on duty. And then the respirators, which are also known as filtering face pieces. These have been reserved really for use by the medical professionals that are dealing with the COVID-19 patients, and also by healthcare professionals in the hospital setting, prison officers who are dealing with the cohort of persons who have to be isolated. And likewise, I imagine immigration as well, and for officers that might have to be working in close quarters as well. But these are really have been reserved, and so we have not really been accustomed to seeing persons wearing these. So if we want to be reminded about the cloth face mask, we want to make sure that at least it's of a good durable quality. The cotton ones work really well. Remember, how often do you actually change your cloth mask?
Wash mine.
Online, anyone has said? Do you change them once a week? Once every few days? Every day? Right, you're supposed to wash it at least every day. Okay, and that's why we end up with a whole bunch of masks in our clothing drawer, right? So yes, please, and that's why we have different masks we use for different things. So the cloth mask, once you use it, and once it becomes soil, please remove it. Please ensure that you wash it. Okay, warm, soapy water is best for it. I like to air dry mine. And make sure that you keep your dirty cloth mask separate from your clean cloth masks. That's important. Okay. Of course, with the surgical masks, which many of us have been using, these are actually cleared by the FDA and they are disposable in nature. So they're not meant to be used and reused and then used again 2 days later. No, that's not the intent. Okay? When you finish using, when you put it on, you remove it. If you're going to have it on for multiple hours, you're going to have to discard of that mask at the end of the day. If, however, you have used your surgical mask for a few minutes and you're in a situation where you can remove it, you can put it away in a sealable bag and reuse it again in the same day, not the next day. Okay? But they are disposable. And in addition to protecting the wearer from large droplets and splashes and sprays, it controls the spread of droplets from the person wearing the face mask. So therefore, it protects others nearby. Okay? Respirators, on the other hand, are the best sort of protection that you have. And it's actually a tight-fitting, tougher device. You have to ensure that you have taken a survey that ensures that you don't have any sort of condition that prevents you from wearing this type of mask. It is difficult to wear over long periods, and you also need to be fit checked or fit tested to ensure that you're wearing the correct type of N95 or the correct type of respirator for you, for your facial features as well, because it's highly dependent on how tight that seal is between the mask and your face. If there's any air that's getting in between, it's going to be pretty much useless because you would not be protected. Okay? What it does is that it filters the air before it gets to your breathing zone. Okay? Which the others don't filter anything. When you pull in, you're just pulling air straight in. With the surgical mask, with the cloth mask. It's like if you ran with your towel in front of your face. Yeah. Okay. So what type of mask do you wear while on duty? I don't know if we had this. I don't know if there was a separate if we miss. Okay. For persons who wear masks? And we have any question at this time in the room?
Participants face poll questions. Which type of mask?
Did we already launch this by accident? So the one that we were supposed to launch. Okay, so that's okay. I think we answered it. But there was a question, the poll question. I think there was a mix-up.
Yes.
Can we launch the other poll now?
Okay, Sasha, just give me a minute.
One moment, colleagues. What we're going to do is we're going to.
No, Sasha, we had done the previous question on protective measures, and the one on respirators was launched, but I did relaunch it. The next one coming up in line is not due as yet.
Okay, great. So we specifically asked for in terms of the type of respirators in this one?
Yes.
Okay, and that has been launched?
Yes, that has been launched,
okay.
And I can share the results of the second launch.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. Thank you, colleagues. Yes. Okay. Oops, wait. I didn't see that last one there just now. The one after. Next one.
Sasha, do you want me to share something?
There was another poll. Correct. Okay. Thanks very much. Okay. Thanks, Shelly. So we get that. So yes, the majority of us are wearing the cloth mask or the surgical mask. So it seems to be a combination approach. And that's fine for the majority of the tasks that we are going to be dealing with. Okay. Okay, great. So a word on the type of respirators, because we spoke about the different types and we're all familiar with the non-medical masks, the cloth masks, and the surgical masks now, okay? They act as a fluid guard. In terms of respiratory protection, when you're looking at active forms of respiratory protection, we have the air purifying, non-powered type of respirators, which are the N95s that we're familiar with and seeing. And we also have the powered air purifying respirators. Acts in a similar way. And these would be the ones that you would have seen the people when they wear the entire body suits and they have the little battery pack on the side with the hose coming up the back of the neck. Okay. What it's doing is that there's a filter in that battery pack. So when they switch it on, the air gets sucked into there. The air is filtered in that battery pack before it goes up the hose and into the headpiece. Okay? So the air is cleansed before it gets to your nose, basically. Okay? There's also the gas mask. And here you can change out the different types of cartridges, which filter out different types of chemicals or toxins in the air. Okay. The other type of respiratory protections, what the firefighters and first responders tend to have going into highly contaminated environments, so the atmosphere supplying respirators. So these are the ones with the oxygen tanks. Yeah. So how do these N95 respirators work? So the one on the left, it will be left there too, I believe, for you. This is a negative pressure air purifying respirator. It basically uses the motion of inhalation. When you inhale, you create a negative pressure and it draws air into the mask. As the air goes through the mask itself, sorry about that, any contaminants get caught on the filter. And the filter is actually the material that the mask is made up of. Okay? So that the air that gets into the space you breathe by your nose, your breathing zone, is actually cleaned. And it's called N95 because it's taking out to 95% of the contaminants out of the air, including viruses, bacteria, all of these things that get caught on the matrix of the mask. And that's why when you wear it for an extended period of time, over a number of hours, it gets more and more difficult to breathe in. Because what's happening is the material is becoming loaded with all these things that are being drawn out of the atmosphere. Okay? And I explained a little bit earlier about how the powered one works with the battery pack. So when you turn it on, pulls the air in through the filter, and it's nice clean air that gets into your breathing zone there. So we said that surgical masks protect our nose and mouth from getting splattered with these body fluids that we can't see, but they're there. It's important to note that a surgical mask is not a respirator. Okay? The surgical mask does not cleanse the air before it gets into your breathing zone. And that's why we need to be fit tested to ensure that we're wearing the correct respirator. There's no need to be fit tested for a surgical mask, correct? That's why many of us or all of us are using these. With the fit testing or with the use of the respirator, it's important, as I said, for you to ensure that you're free from any condition that could prevent you from wearing a respirator if your job calls for that. You need to do an initial review. Usually this is a survey or questionnaire that you would fill out. And if there's any concern, the person who is monitoring the program or distributing the N95 masks, they would ask or seek a medical opinion for you to ensure that you can, in fact, proceed to the next step, which is to be fit tested for the correct type of respirator for your face before you're allowed to wear it on the job. Okay. And there are two ways that you can do this fit test. The qualitative way, where they basically put this bag over your head with a little hole in the middle while you're wearing the mask. And they have a solution in this little bulb and they pump it. So they spring the solution into the area around your face. And they ask you, can you taste that? Okay, it's either a sweet solution or a bitter solution. Because most of us can either taste bitter or sweet. Yeah? And so because as you get older, your tongue gets deadened to some of these things, it becomes more difficult to know whether or not you truly tasted the bitterness or you truly tasted the sweetness or not. So that's why it's very subjective, because it's relying on you to say, no, I can't taste that. Or did I taste that or not? Okay? Whereas the quantitative way of fit testing, there's an expensive piece of apparatus, an expensive machine, but you don't have to, you put on the mask and you hook it up with a hose to the machine and you breathe normally. It takes you through several exercises, normal breathing, deep breathing, moving your head in different motions, okay? Speaking, so there are different types of exercises that you have to go through, and it will calculate whether or not you're being protected while you're doing those range of motions. So it's very objective. It's in the, you don't need to say anything for it to know whether or not you have the correct fit. Okay. So limitations of respirators and also masks in general. They're difficult to wear over long periods of times. The materials can degrade and lose their protective properties, and we understand this because if it's filtering the air all the time, then things are getting caught on that matrix. Okay. As I said, the fit test is important because the effectiveness is highly dependent on how it fits the user. And that's the entire issue with personal protective equipment. If you buy gloves and you only buy large gloves, then persons who are tiny will have a lot of problems, okay? Because they'll be swimming in the gloves that you've provided them with. Or likewise, if you only have medium gloves, but you have persons on both sides of that. You have some medium, but you have persons that have smaller hands. You have persons that have much larger hands. You need to ensure that you've catered for all this stuff to have a wide selection. So gentlemen, it's important to note that these N95 masks cannot really be used properly with facial hair. The reason it works is because it's creating a tight seal between the skin and the mask. And anything that can break that seal will reduce or basically make it, render it ineffective as a respirator. And so beards will cause that, and some other different aspects that we will see here. So weight loss or weight gain. So I've had persons who fit tested on a particular mask, and then we do it again the following year, and they don't fit test again on the same mask. Once you start doing wearing the N95 masks, you need to be fit tested at least on an annual basis, or if there's been a change in your condition. So for women, if you've become pregnant and you've come back out to work, then you need to be fit tested again. And of course, we can safely say that's usually associated with some level of weight gain, right? Also, wrinkles, scars, acne, makeup. You might think putting on a little bit of blush or powder will not affect the seal if you're going to wear a respirator. Yes, it can affect the seal. I've had persons come to be fit tested, and even though we've explained, these are the don'ts. Don't eat, don't drink at least 30 minutes before we do the test. Please do not wear any makeup. Women like to look nice, and so they come, and I'm using the quantitative kit. and the quantitative kit picks it up one time. It doesn't say you're wearing makeup. You just fail. All you're doing there is standing, breathing normally. That's the first test it gives you. And you fail. So I have to ask, so you're looking very nice today. Perchance you have on a little bit of powder there. Oh, yes, I forgot what you said. Go and wash your face and come back. First test, you've passed. Okay? So the little, very small changes can affect how the respirators fit on your skin. And of course, your facial structure and dentures. There's some masks that I would definitely be unable to wear. And so, gentlemen, as I said, no facial hair, but the CDC has actually created this nice diagram which shows you some of the styles that you can, in fact, have and safely wear a respirator. Okay, so it tends to be the ones with a little mustache right under your nose, but not too much facial hair on the chin. So some key things before you use the N95 respirator, it's important that you check and follow the manufacturer's inspection procedures. We hope that this will be a temporary situation and that we can go back to being mask-free in the future. But I'm sure that a lot of our companies will have had a lot of PPE stored up. And so it's going to be very important for us to ensure that we are checking those PPE to ensure that in the event that we have to use or pull it out for emergency response or a particular situation that calls for it, that there are no cracks, tears, dirt, or even that the elastic has gotten slack or cracked or can easily break. That with the fatiguing. Okay. We need to examine the head straps for elasticity. And where some of them actually have the ability to have filter gaskets as part of the respirator, that you ensure that those are properly seated and in good condition. And if you're using a respirator that uses a filter cartridge, which may not be the situation here, but you may have some situations in your environment using toxic chemicals or being exposed to toxic chemicals, you need to ensure that you make a note of when last the filter or the cartridge was changed. We're going to go through this in the demonstration. Each time you put on your N95 respirator, you need to do a seal check, and you will know right away when you breathe and you exhale whether or not you have a good fit, because if you feel air coming up through the top of the mask or down the bottom, it means that you have not achieved a good fit, and so you should not enter into the workspace. So for those of you who wear respirators, could you share what are some of the issues you've experienced? And this can be said for any type of mask. We have here poor fit, difficult to breathe in, remembering not to touch the front, okay? And then removal. How do you remove it? Pull it from the front, right? Pull it down. Right, you have to remember to hold it by the straps. And what happens, you usually feel an itch as soon as you put the mask on, you feel an itch somewhere in the front. You don't want to be touching it in the front. And I think that's been one of the hardest things for me. I don't think Pete's poll had that. Remembering not to touch your face. I didn't see that on your poll, but I think that's the one that gets to me all the time. I'm like, I don't remember liking to touch my face that much. Okay, yes. So great, exactly. It's difficult to breathe in and remembering not to touch the front of the mask. Any type of mask, but definitely not the respirator, because we said that that's acting as the filter. The material that the respirator is made up of is basically like a big filter. So you don't want to be touching that. Thank you. So here, just the visual. Before we put on any type of PPE, we always want to begin with our hand hygiene. And where possible, I always recommend to do hand washing, right? Hand sanitizer for me is in the absence of a hand washing facility. Okay? And so again, remember, only hold whichever face mask, type of face mask you have by the straps and to place over your ears or over your head. And we'll demonstrate that with the respirator in a little bit. Make sure that our mask is fitting from at least the bridge of the nose and down below the chin. Okay. And of course, on the sides. We have some nice cloth masks, but they're very tiny on the sides. That's not very good. Want it to go around the sides properly. Want to remind us, use our risk assessment, risk-based approach, only wear the mask for those activities which require its use. And so, for instance, in my risk assessment, I'm driving alone. I do not wear a mask while I'm driving. However, if it was a law, I'd have to do that, right? But this point, we want to advocate for a risk-based approach as to when we wear our masks. When we finish doing our activity or task, or when we're ready to remove our mask, remember, please hold your face mask by the straps only. To remove, please dispose of the mask by placing it into a closed bin, put it in some tissue or so on. Don't just throw it in the bin just like that, okay? And of course, hand sanitize or hand wash after we've handled our mask. If you're using a cloth mask, after you've cleaned it and so on, make sure you put it back into your little clean bag. Yes? And so I don't know, Shelly, are there any questions about mask use in the chat?
Yes, there was one about regular. Is it important to regularly change a surgical mask?
Right. I don't know if that person believes it has been answered, but yes, it is a disposable type of mask. It's not meant to be used and reused. Okay. Especially if it is the protocol in your workplace to use a surgical mask while on duty. If you're going to be using that for 8 hours, then you wouldn't want to wear it the next day in any case. Okay. So you're looking at disposing of it then. It's okay if you're using the surgical mask and you have a break time and you remove it to have a little snack. Please remember, make sure that when we're wearing our masks that our faces are clean, because that will also add to becoming dirty. That's no fun. Yeah. And you can rewear the mask at that point, but then I would not recommend wearing it for much longer than that, especially if you're wearing it for prolonged periods of time, hours at an end in the day. So I wanted to just say that we need to ensure that we improve the fit of our mask. Sometimes the loops are too long, and it's okay if you need to knot them and tie them so that you get a better fit, and so the sides are not flapping open. Okay, you want to try as much as possible for the sides to lie flat against your face. Remember that face masks are a complementary measure. They do not replace the other recommended preventative measures, hand hygiene, or cough and sneeze etiquette, or physical distancing. Remember how far apart we're supposed to be? 6 feet. We've achieved that in this room, so thank you, Impacts, for ensuring that we maintain that. And avoid touching our faces. Okay, I think we went through this. In terms of taking care of our face mask, I just wanted to point out, if your face mask is reusable, wash it after use with detergent at 60 degrees Celsius, okay? And let's see. I want to also make a plug again to make sure that we're not wearing hammocks, right? Not on the chin only. We have to cover from here to here, right? I know it's difficult, but it's not protecting if you have it here. Yeah. To pull it up, right? Okay. So some additional considerations that I mentioned. Consider going makeup free, because all of these types of makeup will soil the inside of the mask. It's not good. Earrings, ladies, you know, consider the type of jewelry that we're wearing. Don't want to be tangling up in the mask. And of course, as always, tie back long hair. Do I still need to wear a mask after I take the COVID-19 vaccine? What do you guys think? What are your thoughts on this?
I say no.
Shelley, can you
Yeah,
launch the poll?
Hi, Shelley, could you launch the poll, please?
It's launched.
I say no. I say no. Do I still wear a mask? I say no. I say no. I still need to wear a mask. No. I don't think so comfortable. Anything to do to get out of it.
Okay, great. Let's see. Um, so majority of persons have said yes, and yes, you will still have to wear the mask even after you've taken the vaccine, at least for the foreseeable future, until we have sufficient evidence to show that once you've been vaccinated, that you do not pass or shed the virus to others. Okay, so you're being protected when you get the vaccine. And remember, the effectiveness of the vaccine, you may be fully protected, or for some persons, they may still get sick, but they'll have a very mild form of the disease. Because what we're trying to really avoid or is to reduce the number of severe cases that can lead to death. Yeah, we can't stop the infection really until we achieve a certain level of herd immunity, which will take time. So until such time and until we know more information, because we had a big discussion about how quickly all these vaccines came out, right? What's important is that the vaccines have not been rushed at the expense of safety, one, to the human population, and two, we are still learning. We're still at the beginning rather than being at the middle of it. Okay, so we need to continue with the measures that we already have in place until you can say, okay, we don't need to have the mask anymore. Okay, thank you, colleagues, for that. Could we? Well, actually, I have to change it. So on to the next type, just a couple more. How to use a gown. So not many of us are going to be using gowns, but likewise, whether it's a mask, glove, gown, face shield, you need to select the appropriate size and the type of gown that you're going to wear for the activity you're going to be using. Just want to get to the picture. Right. So usually the opening for gowns are in the back. So the front is completely covered. So there's that protection for any splashes and spills onto your person. And usually secure it at the neck with a tie and at the waist. However, if the gowns that are available are too small for you, then you can use two gowns instead. And so the first one you put on like a coat. So the opening is in the front, you tie that, and then the second gown goes over with the opening in the back. So your back and your front is completely covered. Okay. Gloves. Risk assessment. Again, you need to identify the steps or the tasks and activities that would require you to use gloves in the first place. And for those activities where you do need to use gloves, you need to limit opportunities for touch contamination. What happens? We feel we're invincible when we have on a pair of gloves, aren't? I'm going to touch this, I'm going to touch that, I'm going to touch the door handle, and you keep going through. What happens to the persons who come after you that are not wearing gloves? They're now touching surfaces that you've potentially contaminated with your gloved hands. So you need to limit those opportunities. It's important that we're protecting not only ourselves, but others and the environment. Again, don't touch your face or adjust PPE with gloves, with contaminated gloves, okay? And you should be changing your gloves frequently, especially during use if they're torn or when they become soiled. You can actually see them becoming soiled. Between persons or items. I don't know if we have persons online who use gloves regularly for doing checks of persons or their luggage. And we asked this question this morning. Is it normal to change gloves between persons when you're checking? In my years of prior travel, as many of us, prior travel now, but thing of the past, right? I would cringe because they have the gloves in their hands, but they're going to touch my luggage after touching 15 other persons' luggage. Okay? But I also can ask quite nicely, could you please change your gloves for me? And many people oblige. So that's a good thing too, right? But really and truly, you should be changing those pairs of gloves between persons and items. Okay? You don't want to cross-contaminate persons' luggage and become a source of the infection as well. And it's important to know that you're not to reuse single-use or disposable gloves. This has now some considerations for persons doing procurement in terms of their processes and how much you're buying, because now you expect an increase in use. And it's important where we're using any type of PPE to have appropriate discard bins or receptacles for PPE. Okay? So while we're talking about all of this with PPE and the use of it, we are also generating waste, more waste than in this regard than we would have otherwise before. And we need to ensure that we have measures in place to deal with that. So could persons tell me whether or not they use gloves for any parts of their activities?
Come up online and say yes.
All right, so we're getting a sometimes coming up. And for persons who've answered yes, for the brave souls who may want to identify themselves, how frequently do you change your gloves? Do you wear them all the time? Or is it only for specific activities? Okay, thanks, colleagues. So majority of persons answering sometimes. So for those particularly online, you do require the use of gloves. And so I hope that that bit that we just spoke about, that you would consider some of what is said, especially in terms of reducing touch contamination and cross-contamination. Thanks, Sherry. Yes. And is it practical, Sherry, what we're talking about in terms of being able to change your gloves with that level of frequency when you're going through cargo or maybe not cargo, but definitely passenger luggage and so on. Right. So then we need to think about what can be done. So any ideas? So I'll leave you and others, Sherry, to think about that in terms of the potential for cross-contamination and how we can reduce that when we're using gloves. Because you're protecting yourself, but remember, if you're touching things that are contaminated from one individual and you're moving to a new individual, you're also going to be the source of taking whatever it is across to the next individual. Okay? And so CARFA's stance is that in the public domain, we do not recommend the use of gloves, okay, willy-nilly in specific, on specific circumstances and for particular activities. Yes, it's warranted, okay, but we don't recommend the use of personal or reusable gloves in public. Remember, we need to ensure that we're performing our hand hygiene, washing our hands or using the alcohol-based hand rubs after removing our gloves. So at this point, I'm going to ask Roger to assist me, but I'm going to ask the persons in the room to stay where they are. We're going to just do the motions for hand washing or the hand sanitizing. And I'll ask persons online to join us with doing these movements as well. So as I said, where possible, we should try to have our hand washing facility, but if we don't, then we use our alcohol-based hand sanitizer, which should be between 60 to 80% ethanol or isopropanol. Anything greater than that will not be as effective. Anything less than that will not be as effective. So what do? We rub our hands together. So I invite you, colleagues in the room, to rub your hands together. And then you do right over left, left over right. Interlace the fingers. Oh, I'll need some to be able to see the instructions.
Oh, sorry.
Just all right. I don't want to miss a step. So we're right. So we're rubbing it in between. So we're getting all in these parts here when we do this way. Then we're going to sing like if we're in the choir. So we hook one into the other this way. This, so hook, try it. And then you hook the next way. Like if you're singing in the choir. Remember how to hold your hands when you're in the choir? Right. You're holding like your hands. Right, that's it. You hold your hands like if you're in the choir. Then you need to get your thumbs. So remember, like if you pretend to be on the motorbike. All right, rev the motorbike. And then anybody like to eat Indian food with their hands? Sani?
Yes.
Yes, sani, right? Sani the food, right? So you want to sani, you want to get the fingertips. And then you finish off by washing, okay? Now, if you're doing this with the hand sanitizer, a lot of people say, oh, the hand sanitizer is really wet. If you do it properly, it will be completely dry. It'll be dried by the time you're finished, okay? So I just want to let you know that. Again, hand washing is best where it's practical, but if not, 60 to 80% ethanol or isopropanol in your hand sanitizer. That's important, again, for procurement to be aware of that so that you're purchasing the right type of hand sanitizer. And the WHO has documents available on the type of formulation that should be used. A lot of persons have sensitive skin. So there are a lot of products out there, and we wouldn't be making a recommendation for one or the other, but it's going to be important for you to ensure that whatever is purchased is going to be suitable for your skin and, of course, moisturize. Okay, I think we've all started to do that a little bit more frequently.
Thank you.
Stay there because I might need you after this. Right. So a point here I want to make on the cleaning process is that routine detergents and disinfectants that we all know and love, bleach and water,
Thank you.
right?
Bleach and water.
Are sufficient to
Bleach and
kill
water.
and remove the COVID-19 virus. What is important is that we're diluting the bleach appropriately. It works best when it's diluted in water. That's what makes it active.
Bleach and water.
Okay, so you don't need to go and use anything fancier than
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, it's
Bleach and
important to
water.
frequently sanitize, disinfect surfaces, high touch surfaces, especially around the office. You have multiple persons using the physical space that they're in all the time. Considerations between shifts as well, like cubicles and all of that. Those need to be sanitized or disinfected between shifts. Okay. So operational considerations. For those of you who are working in teams or crews, making sure that there's physical distancing where possible. That provides the most effective first line of protection in addition to the PPE that you're going to be wearing. And those of you who are working in vehicles that are assigned to you or your crew, making sure that you disinfect the vehicles thoroughly at the start and at the end of every shift or with a change of crew, especially focusing on high touch surfaces, so like the steering wheel, handbrake, door handles, the radio, any part that you tend to fiddle with, your seat belt. Okay, particularly for police, avoid entering someone's non-police premises unless it's absolutely essential to do so. And I think we've all mastered the art of teleworking. No, not all of us. It's still a challenge for some of us, but where possible, we've changed really how we operate. So that's important to note. I think I wanted to make one right. So some persons might find it difficult to disinfect at the beginning and end of each shift. Just wanted to give you an example from the laboratory. When we use equipment that is shared, we love our colleagues. It has to be documented that it's been cleaned, but we also clean before we start using that piece of equipment. Okay? Because we understand that the environment can be contaminated and we do not want to transmit things. So it's become a part of how we work, even from before. That's how we're taught. Remember, please remove single-use PPEs and place them directly into designated waste containers. For persons that are on mobile patrol, if it's possible, make sure you have like a plastic bag or waste bag so you can put all your PPE that's going to be discarded during that time that you're on the road, so that when you get back to home base, you can actually put it into the designated waste receptacle. Okay. Right. So at this point, I'm going to ask for 2 volunteers to help me demonstrate how to use gloves and how to wear our masks properly. Okay, and I'll ask persons online to follow along with us.
See you, not me and you. You go. You go. When I put on gloves, I just put powder on my hand and put it on. You can't put on. Powder and you put on the gloves. Huh?
So colleagues online, what's the first thing they're supposed to do? They're about to put on PPE. In the chat? I'm sure you all got it correct. Very good. Excellent. So now we get to see if they've been paying attention to all the being in the choir and rubbing and all of that. Right? So left over right, right over left, in between to interlace your fingers. Being in the choir. Yeah. Rubbing the motorbike. Rev the motorbike. Make sure you eat with the hands. And right, very nice. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to now remove your mask. You can. Very nice. You already have this down. Okay. So for you, what I'm going to ask you to do is place your mask on top here. Okay. This is we put it on top there. Yes. So everyone knows how to put on a pair of gloves, right? That's the easy part. Make sure that when you put it on, you ensure that it's not folded in. And for today's demonstration, we are going to be using N95 masks that are meant for medical professionals. Okay, these are training supplies. I'm going to take by the straps from me. Yeah. Are you going good? Okay. This one is for you. All right, just hold it by the strap there. So I just want to make sure, right, colleagues are seeing properly. So you put your hands through both loops. So let it hang freely. So if you held on the top here, hang freely. Yeah, so come from this side, put your hand through it like this. Underneath. Right, nice, underneath. So nose piece is to the top, right? So when we go, I'm just gonna demonstrate first and then you're gonna follow me. I'm gonna take the bottom strap first, pull it up and over. All right, you give me a little space there, right the thing. It's going under my ears. See that? And then the top part is coming to what we call the crown of our head. And I want to make sure that the elastic strap is straight. All right, so I'm gonna say to the bottom one first, under your ears. It's always fun when we have ladies that have, and then we have the earrings and so on too, right? Those things get caught and dangled. So let's see. So you have to go under your ears and under your earring in this case. Earring. And this one goes up. Top. Just let me see the side. Next one. And so a lot of times when you're going to be using this, usually you would have a mirror so on to make sure that you're proper, right? Properly. How does it feel breathing in it? Comfortable. Comfortable for now. Usually when I do this, we do another activity in the meantime, so people spend at least 20 minutes wearing the mask. And I ask them how they're feeling. Yeah, especially for persons who don't usually wear it. All right, we're going to perform the seal check. We're going to perform the seal check now, which was on the slide previously. And so before we do that, we're just going to make sure that the top is nicely formed against our noses. So that's with the nose clip, the metal nose clip. You want to make sure that's pressed down. Yeah. Everybody has it above the nose, down below the chin, right? So you're going to cup your hands, place it over, and breathe in deeply. You should actually feel the mask collapse a little bit. So you have to make sure that there's no hole there. So you have to keep this in. Right. This way. Keep your hands together. Breathe in. Breathe out. When you exhale, if you feel any air coming up, okay, good. So it seems as if they're prepared to wear this properly and go and do whatever task that they have to do. Okay? You're feeling it in the mask, but not coming out. Very good. So we've done our task. Time has elapsed, and so we're ready to remove our PPE. What should we do? Right. So what we want to do, oh, no, no business yet. in any situation where we have the need for the respirator, it means that there's a reason that we want to protect our breathing, okay? And so the last thing we want to take off is the mask, actually. So at this point, we're ready to take off gloves. And people who wear gloves, we all know that we do like this,
Yes.
right? So we don't want to do that anymore, okay? Because think about it. You're pulling it up and away. You're spreading things. What you want to do is point down away from you when you're removing the gloves. Because if you've used your gloves, it means that some part of it is contaminated with something, okay? So down, so you pinch just on the inside of one, and you pull it, roll it into the next hand.
Right, and you.
Try not to touch the inside, roll it into the next hand. So it's kind of in this hand. No, the hand with the glove. Right, very good. And you go underneath the second glove and pull it off.
So you have the two in one hand. So, two of them
So I'm
there.
touching the inside of the glove, which is
Your
not
hand.
contaminated.
Kiss in your boost.
So you need to point downwards, right? You can move it. What do we need? What do we need to do now?
Sanitize.
Thank you. We need to sanitize. Very good. Very good. A plus. A plus student over here.
And so I hate it.
So for those colleagues online, just think about our other colleagues in the healthcare profession who have to do this with each patient every time. Okay? For removal. And for the layers of PPE that they're wearing, they have to do it in between each step. Okay? So to remove, we need to grab the back, the bottom, so we're never touching the front. Up and over. Use the bottom strap first. Oh, not to the front, always to the back. Not to the front, always to the back. Yes. Right. So there you go. Thank you very much. A round of applause for volunteers. Thanks, Roger. Thank you very much. I hope that the demonstration will be of use to you, colleagues online. Yes, you go ahead with the napkin. Okay. If we can go back to the slide set. And we're just wrapping up in anticipation of a wonderful wrap-up session by Dr. Cheryl Jones on health and well-being. So remember that PPE is meant to protect us, the wearer, and some parts of it can also help to protect others around us, like the mask, okay? And it's just one type of control measure that we've spoken about today, and it's to be used in combination with the other types of control measures that we all familiar with now. And of course, the factors which influence PPE selection include the type of exposure that we anticipate, which we know we're trying to not contract COVID-19. We don't want to spread it to others either. And of course, how appropriate it is and the type of fit that we get from it. For the use of gloves, make sure that we are avoiding touch contamination. And remember that gloves are generally single use only. So and that's why we need to really identify critical activities that require its use when dealing with the public. They get very hot and sweaty under those gloves as well. Okay. Masks, remember, cover the nose and the mouth. We spoke about the three types. Remember the difference between a respirator, which filters the air, versus the surgical and cloth masks, which don't filter the air. Okay, but it provides sufficient protection for us in the situations which we are wearing them based on our risk assessment. Make sure, please, that we're discarding our PPE in appropriate containers. Okay. Hand hygiene, hand washing where possible, hand sanitizers where that's not possible, And of course, for hand sanitizing rubs, the concentration of alcohol should be between 60 to 8%. Okay. So we've provided some additional resources for you as well. And we will be taking questions in the chat. If you have any more at this time, allow me to introduce Dr. Cheryl Jones. So Shelley, any questions in the chat for me at this time?
No, not at this time. We will address any questions via the forum. Okay, here's one. Is there preferred mask type for frontline workers? For instance, does WHO or CARPHA suggest we use the N95 or cloth mask with pockets for filters rather than the single-ply cloth mask? Do you want me to repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a preferred type of mask for frontline workers? For instance, does WHO or CARPHA suggest we use the N95 or cloth mask with pockets for filters rather than the single-ply cloth mask?
Okay, yeah, so frontline workers do, depending on what type of frontline worker you are, so in the healthcare setting, there's specific types of masks that you need to use. And that's why we're going through, that's why we're talking about risk assessment for the security officers here today. So in terms of the cloth mask, I think you said, Shelley?
Yes.
All right. So if you're interacting with the public, they're not going to suggest that you use cloth masks if you're going to be doing, like, let's say, riot control. Okay. The type of PPE and masks that you have generally to be used for crowd control measures, your face shields, etc., those are adequate to protect you against anything from such as COVID-19. But yes, PAHO and WHO do have guidelines on this, and those are also some of the resources that we've had. Okay, so I will be checking in the chat, and at this time I'll hand over to Dr. Jones.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sasha. I'm going to ask everybody to stand up, please. Everybody in internet land, stand up. Be very happy I don't have music with me. I need you to shake. I need you to move. I need you to wake up a little bit. It's after lunch. It's almost 4. I won't keep you long, but I want your blood moving so that you can hear me and feel yourself thinking, because I'm gonna have you thinking a little bit. Okay. I trust that everybody in internet land did stand up. If not, I hope you at least wiggled in your chair. So I'm going to talk to you about mental health and wellness. The people in the room, feel free to sit down. Everybody's standing up looking at me. Like, are you gonna let us sit down? So I'm going to move a bit briskly. I'm gonna take into consideration your state of mind and the fact that the day is ending quickly. So we're gonna talk about health and well-being for frontline workers. I'm going to start by briefly getting you to think about the way you feel now as far as your well-being is concerned, and we're going to talk about well-being in a few moments, but what you perceive well-being to be before I get into the discussion, I want you to think about how you feel now, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Just think about it. I don't want you to say anything. Just have a little thought process, center yourself, and say, well, how do I feel now as opposed to when this journey started, this journey through COVID-19? Do I feel the same? Do I feel better? Do I feel a little more challenged? Do I feel nothing? So just kind of center yourself so we could talk about health and well-being. So why are we talking about health and well-being in this context? Your jobs in general are a bit stressful. Just it comes with the terrain, what you do. Law enforcement, people not in law enforcement, even people working in the grocery stores, it's stressful because you have to constantly respond to public need. You have to constantly service the public. But with COVID-19, there are some more factors that may cause a little more intensity, let's call it that, in your life. So we're going to talk about why it's important to think about your health and well-being. You're thinking about your health and well-being because a person who has a better quality of life produces a better service, produces a better product, does a better job, and yields a better workforce in general. So a group of people who look at health and well-being, place it as a priority in their life, are more likely to be more successful in an organization. There's so many things that impact health and well-being. There's so many factors. There's everything from the physical to the emotional to how you care for yourself, things that you Google and research on the internet, the conversations that you have with friends. Research is not just looking at an academic article. It includes when you talk to your pastor about a way that you feel, when you talk to your parent, when you talk to your child, when you talk to your pet, when you talk to God. All of that is still researching what it is that you need to be centered, to be balanced. So we're going to talk about that. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, emotional, and I would add spiritual health. It's not just the absence of disease. The absence of disease is just where you are in that realm. But health takes into consideration all of the other factors. Wellness, we view wellness as a state of physical health. But it looks at the emotional stability, your ability to think clearly, your ability to love, to feel, to have compassion, to embrace others, to deal with change, to exercise, to be able to use or feel or experience, to use intuition. And one would argue that a lot of people don't use intuition, but that might be because there are things that have their life off balance. So what is the difference between wellness and well-being? Wellness and well-being they have a synergistic relationship. I like to look at it kind of like the question about the chicken and the egg, which came first. How are they related? Wellness is a set of habits and behaviors focused on physical health, while well-being is a state of mind that focuses on your emotions. But wellness contributes to well-being and well-being contributes to wellness. So we use them oftentimes interchangeably and at the same time because they both work together. This diagram is actually a very good visual effect of what wellness is. So you have all the factors: emotional, financial, social, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, and environmental that impact your wellness, and they're all overlapping. Okay. So one of the things that I want you to do now that we've talked about what wellness is and what well-being is to actually think about the factors in your life that impact your wellness. So the people in internet land on Facebook and Zoom can actually go in and answer the question to the poll. While you're answering those questions, or while you're selecting the items that influence your well-being as they're provided here, jot those items down. Write it down on a piece of paper, type it into your phone, but I want you to visualize it. I want you to look at it on a page or on a phone. Try to put them in order of priority. Which one comes first? Which one has the most impact? And perhaps there are some factors that are not listed for you to choose for the people in internet land. But There may be other factors that you want to jot down. So you want to be able to look at this list of factors that impact your wellness so that you can begin to think of how you can bring balance to address those factors. And you can also come back and look at this list to see how it changes from day to day, because it generally will change. It can change within the day, but it generally changes over time. So that we're going to talk in the end about developing this plan so that you can bring balance to your wellness. You need to know what those factors are. And it helps along a lot of times to look back months later to see how effective you were at impacting or changing or modifying the effect that these items are having on your wellness. So if you look at the poll, the number one factor that impacts well-being is relationships. The second factor looks like sleep, which is amazing because it's the end of the day, and I wonder how much of that is impacting on the fact that people are tired right now and want me to get finished. But sleep is really one of the large factors that we oftentimes do not put enough emphasis on, because there is a thing as not getting enough sleep, as we know, but then there's another such thing as getting too much sleep or trying to use sleep to not address the factors that you need to be addressing. The next one looks like it's job, then money. Money and nutrition seem to be kind of close. Religion, hobbies. Okay. So thank you. You can take the poll down. So the factors that you saw in that poll were things that researchers have said based on researching or working with and talking to people, that these are the factors that really do impact well-being. So we need to look at these factors and have a clear idea. Look at these factors, yes, but look at the factors that you have on your paper to have a clear idea of what it is that impacts your individual well-being. The other thing that I want you to now think about is how COVID-19, this pandemic, this experience we're going through, write down how this pandemic has interrupted your well-being. What things about the pandemic have interrupted your well-being? But also note for yourself if there have been things that, if the pandemic has opened the way for you to do some things that you may not have known you could do. Maybe you found a new strength. Maybe you found a new opportunity. Maybe you found a new business venture. Maybe you found a new hobby because you've had to sit still and think about it. So write down both how it's interrupted, but also some of the things that were positive that came out of it. And someone stated that the pandemic has affected the flow of money, and that is as definitely true. It has that an economic effect. So these are some of the ways that that COVID-19 has possibly interfered with our well-being. Increased levels of stress, interruption of life's activities, livelihoods, as someone mentioned, money, increase in loneliness from the physical distancing, increase in depression, increase of alcohol and drug use, and also increase in violence. And someone stated that the only positive thing out of the pandemic or this journey is the fact that they've gotten to spend more time with loved ones, which in itself has a significant value. So one of the first things that we said that came out of this pandemic was an increase in stress. And as I would have, what happened? Okay, thank you. So stress, what is stress? It's a state of mental emotional strain or imbalance that results in us not feeling well. It can result in what can experience extended levels of stress result in? Anybody on pain, suffering. Okay. Before COVID-19, frontline security workers were already under a certain level of stress, correct? Which would vary over time. So COVID-19 has provided another level. One of the first things I asked you to think about was where you are right now with respect to the pandemic. In the beginning of the pandemic, there was fear, anxiety. In the middle of the pandemic, there's fear, anxiety. So how are you feeling? And acknowledge how you're feeling. It is okay to feel imbalanced. It's okay. It's okay to not feel stressed while everybody else is. Just acknowledge where you are in the process and note it. Make sure you're continually noting it. In addition to the pandemic, there are many other things that factor into people's stress levels, including relationships, including, as someone mentioned before, income, economics, livelihood. These are some of the effects of stress. Some of the ways you can see stress in yourself and in others. So in your body as physical issues. You can see it in your mood, change of mood, feeling overwhelmed, irritable, anger, a lot of sadness, restlessness, and then also in behavior. So these feelings, these moods often result in a behavior change that you will notice. And you will notice these things with your colleagues, with your family, within yourself. So the question is, who's responsible for managing stress levels? Management of stress levels is not a one-way thing or a one resolution. It's multi-dimensional, of course, because the stress in itself, the factors are multidimensional. So you have to do your own individual thing. You have to work collectively with others. And then you have to take advantage of the things that are in place for you structurally. So those structural things may be your faith-based organization, your churches, they may be in your actual job. If you are a leader or a person who makes decisions or can impact the leaders who make decisions in organizations, then it may be on your plate, whether it's a formal or informal responsibility, to challenge the fact that there are certain things that are needed for the people around you. So if it's your church and you find that there's something that's needed for a youth organization that's not being done for your children's emotional stress, then it may be on you to sit down and have a conversation with someone to see what can be done, whether it's formal or informal. So the responsibility for managing stress is both with the individual as well as with the collective. And yes, there are people who don't like to be around other people. So their management of stress may look a lot different than those people like me who likes to be around everybody and talk to everybody and not want to be confined to one area. So people are just different. And then there's all in between that. So some of the ways that you can, I'm gonna just put these up. Some of the ways that you can manage stress are to breathe, to be outside, to help others, to do something physical or mental that helps you burn off steam. I might be the person who wants to go running around in circles as fast as I can, while one of my better friends is gonna sit back and watch a puzzle and just look at me like, yeah, you go ahead. I'm gonna sit here and do my puzzle. I'm not moving. I wanna be as still as possible. This is how I manage my stress. If I sit still like that, I'm gonna be stressed. So people are just different. So you just have to find your way of managing stress. Right. Think positive thoughts is always a plus. The other thing on the individual level is that you have to decide that you're going to take control of the situation that you're in. And taking control of the situation means acknowledging that there are some things that you cannot control, but try to be balanced with the things that you can control. So that's one of the major objectives or responsibilities of the individual. Working in conjunction with others. So you're going to make a plan for how you're going to address to bring balance to that wellness wheel that I showed you earlier, what needs to be done? You put down a list of things that kind of highlight where what your stressors are. How do you address those items? You're going to identify factors that you and others can help you to work on to eliminate or bring balance, because you won't eliminate all of the factors. You won't eliminate the stress, but just to bring balance. So once you make that plan, once you look at it, you're actually going to create a plan. You've already started. You've got some list on a piece of paper now. You can develop a plan to say, this is what we're going to do to try and bring my stress level, the factors that are impacting my stress level, to bring balance. You're going to create this plan, and you're going to begin to try to implement and follow the plan. The plan is a living document. You know how sometimes you write something down, you say, I'm going to do these 5 steps, and once I've done the 5 steps, I will have accomplished what I set out to accomplish. That's not how this works. This is an ongoing process that is alive. It's a living thing. It should be written down. It should be in your mind. It should be a part of you. And you must acknowledge also that it includes failure. It includes successes. But the important thing is that you keep moving and you keep changing it and you keep modifying so that you can indeed begin to bring that balance, begin to find that wellness. So think about how, because we said it's collective, because we said there are places, there are individual responsibilities, there are organizational responsibilities. Think about and write down who or what your support networks would be to help you manage stress. Who or what who you would support, or what networks you would support to help others manage stress. Because I know that for me, if my family member, if their stress is managed, so is mine. But when they're stressed, that impacts me. So look at all of those factors and develop a plan. So make sure you jot that down also. I think I already covered this. Please take advantage of any existing structures. If you're in a leadership role, of course, you know, you're responsible for ensuring the employees have knowledge or are knowledgeable of the services that are there for them. If you're not in a leadership role, but you can influence leadership, it might be your role to help also find those services or share those services. And then, of course, you have your informal structures that you will develop. You will have your football, you will have your book clubs. I was telling somebody earlier that I have a book club that is called a book club. We don't read a book. We have books that we're supposed to read. Every so often, the name of the title of our WhatsApp group changes to a new book. And you come on and say, has anybody read? Well, no. But what we wanted to do was such and such's birthday is today. So we just want to have a little toast. And that turns into conversation. That turns into all kinds of things. So that's our book club. We don't really read. So you develop those support systems. And what you realize, this is a journey. Like I said, this is a journey. Enjoy the ride. Make sure you have a route defined or where you're going to start out with. And as obstacles are put in the road, you take a left turn, you make a right turn, you go under the obstacle, over, whatever you need to do, but you continue to move forward. But you also make sure you take advantage of the different types of psychosocial support that exists, mental health and psychosocial support that exists. When we think of supporting us emotionally and spiritually when it comes to stress and balancing our lives, oftentimes we think of the fact that we have to go to a clinician to get some kind of support. And sometimes you do, and that is what is needed. But then there are also times when you just need to know that when you get stressed out, you need to have a conversation with whoever it is that supports you, whoever it is that can bring you some balance. And oftentimes you will find in organizations, whether it's a track club or whether it's a an actual business, that there are informal networks of providing that support. So you just have to know what those networks are, who those people are for you, and who you can support. So that was my presentation in a nutshell. I don't know if there are any questions, comments.
No questions that I can see online, but there was a comment regarding EAPs. And now that this COVID pandemic has occurred, it's showing up how many organizations actually do not have a functioning EAP.
A functioning employee assistance program.
Yes.
That is key. So that's one of the things that in cases where there is structure, that if you have influence, you may begin to question that the need of a functional EAP in the organization you work in. Somebody put potholes is the final driving test in TNT. That is so true. And we do catch those potholes in life, don't we? Okay. I am handing over to whoever is wrapping up today.
There was Cheryl. There was also Cheryl. There was also a comment in the chat. I feel stressed even when the coffee machine is not working. Well, I just want to say thanks to CAFA team, Cheryl, Sasha, and Peter for guiding us through this session. I mean, there was a wealth of knowledge and it was very interesting. I know persons had a lot of questions, and the forum is there to to post your questions, and CAFA will still respond to those questions. For now, I know it's late, so I'll get Candy to do her thing. She'll show you how to access the CBSI Connect site and to retrieve the document, to post your comments in the forum, to keep it live, active, and also to retrieve your certificate. Candy?
Hi, good day, everyone. Let me just share my screen. Okay, for those of you who are trying to get the course material, you all can head to impacts.cbi-connect to register. So once you go to the site, make sure you see the impact sign, the logo, sorry. Then you head to create new account. You enter all the required fields. Please remember to check the security question. I'm not a robot. When you complete same, then you verify. Upon verification, then you click create my new account. After which you would receive a confirmation email that your account was successfully created. Thereafter, once created successfully and you receive the confirmation email, you head to cbsi-connect.org. You log in. Once logged in successfully, you must see a name at the top right-hand corner. There you go to the use of PPE for frontline security officers. Today is the 2nd of March. You click on that link. You can scroll down. There we have the handouts tab, where you receive all the presentation and information as it relates to PPE. And then thereafter, we have the webinar recordings, which will be posted up during this week. Then we have the forums where you all can post your questions to us and we would respond to you all. From the forums, you can actually then go to the evaluation and certificate tab. There you complete the PPE assessment and the training evaluation. Upon completion of both, then you would be able to access the participation certificate. If you will have any issues in registering or completing same, you can contact us at CARICOM Impacts and we will gladly assist you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy, for this. And again, thank everyone for being with us today. CARICOM Impacts remains committed to offering capacity building initiatives such as these. And we thank you also for being with us on CBSI Connect Learning Platform and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.